Welcome back to Reforged Armies, where today's episode is an absolute banger, chock full of all the lessons that I learned painting this model. This is not one you want to miss.
Now the key to this video is trying out two thin coats, red paints. We've done an undercoat of sanguine scarlet, and now we're just liberally highlighting with demon red. Really, the hardest part of this was getting these black gloves on again. Now I saw two thin coats range at my local game store Guff, and I really wanted to try it out, particularly because of the dropper bottles. I'm really impressed, and I think you'll see why during this tutorial if you just keep watching. What we're doing is coating the top layers with demon red. Now the key I've found is to do about a 50-50 mix of demon red and water. We've got the base down as sanguine scarlet. We've done the highlight edges of demon red. Now we're going to use berserker red to go underneath the panel. This will give it a real shadow effect. What I want you to remember here is that you've got to trust the process. That's a real key thing of this tutorial. While there's some cleanup, the end product looks incredible. Let's go on to Chaos Black or Abaddon Black for some of the weapons. You'll see us do a few coats of this, but I really want you to have a look at that Baal Predator. I got that for free at my local game store, and if there's any interest, I will do a tutorial on painting Blood Angels vehicles. You've also seen that I've done the Aquila Black. We're going to highlight that up later on in the piece. Lots of different colors that you can do the Aquila. Remember, this is a speed painting tutorial. We want the colors to go on thickly and easily in minimal coats. So we've chosen black. We're adding your classic lead belcher to the tops of the weapon, the teeth of the chainsaw, the backpack, underneath the heavy bolt pistol. All the areas that you would expect from a typical Space Marine to be metallic. Again, we're choosing paints with really heavy pigments because we want this to be as quick and easy as possible. Then we're moving on to Retributor Armor. And you can see I've just used Retributor Armor for a couple of little details. The gold accent will really help this model pop. We don't need to overdo it. The bolt pistol holster and chainsaw handle, I've actually used Catachan flesh. You can easily use Rhinox hide. Both are really good flat colors that we're going to be able to put some Agrex Earthshade over. Keep watching because you'll see I have a bad time with what I thought was going to be a very easy bolt pistol holster.
We're at a bit of a crossroads here. You could stick with the red easy helmet that you've already done as part of the armor and it's going to look good, or you could try and go the yellow helmet like they show in the box art and the codexes. My recommendation is that if you are looking for quick scheme to paint models, stick with the red helmet, still looks incredible. But my Instagram followers suggested that we try the yellow helmet, and it's an awesome opportunity to show you how to do it. Let's dive in.
So for this helmet, we've gone multiple coats of Games Workshop's Avalan Sunset, a really strong base paint for yellow I would recommend. Once we've finished the Avalan Sunset layers, we're going to move on to Uriel Yellow. I've watered this down a little bit and it does need a couple of coats. This is not a very thick paint. I've gone a bit rogue after that and used two thin coats Yellow Glaze just to dull down the helmet into a color that I was more comfortable with. For the eyes, we've done Caliban Green, followed by a dot of Cabalite Green. I'm a real fan of Cabalite Green's neutral but really easy to apply tone. All the darker recesses, we're going to go Skeleton Horde contrast paint. Really thinly, really finely. You can cover it up with a little bit more Uriel Yellow. You can always try this with Agrex Earthshade, but I've always found Skeleton Horde performs really well. And to finish it off, we use Phalanx Yellow, again edge highlighting to have that contrast against the Skeleton Horde. Repainting Lead Belcher and highlighting it with Nuln Oil again doesn't make this model look amazing on YouTube, but what it does show you is that even with a few layers, your model will still look excellent, so you don't have to strip it every time. And then a very fine drop of just your Corax white will make it much more realistic. And then we just clean up all the red after. Let's get into some of the details. For this model, we're going to do a half red, half black shield because that is the iconography that I've gone in my Blood Angels army. You can definitely choose just to keep it red, keep it black. There's some awesome transfers you can go over that. Get your fine detail brushes out because this is where it starts to get tricky. We're going to use Mechanicus Standard Grey, another really simple, strong color. And we're going to edge highlight the chest eagle, the bolt gun, and then we're going to move on to the chainsaw. Just catching the edges of the weapons and then catching the ribs in the armor panels. You could definitely go back and clean it up. You don't have to be perfect, but just go back and clean up any areas you weren't happy with and make those Mechanicus Standard Grey lines finer. Particularly around the chest eagle, I found I had to just go back and fix it up a little bit. What you'll see in a lot of my videos is for details I only load the tip of my brush. If you look back at the helmet closely, I way overloaded my brush. That actually damages the brush overall. So a key tip is to only load the tips of your brush. This model has a little arm control panel. We've just gone McCrag blue, another color that coats really well. Green is a great color. We're just going to highlight this up. Give it a little detailed pop. Back to that chest shield. I'm going to use Mechanicus Standard Grey again to highlight all of our blacks. Some people use a fancy wet palette. I'm really just using the base Games Workshop plastic palette. I just did my paints down on the palette. If this isn't where the disaster party starts, I tried to use Wraithbone as a simple color to show on YouTube and it looks terrible. I stared at this for a little bit and decided I need to fix it, but you'll see me try and fix it until we find what works. In the interim, we're just going to put some Nuln Oil over the arm control panel and the black areas, the chest eagle and the weapons. I'm going to add some Nuln Oil to the metallics just to give it some extra depth really easily. This is a tip for any metallic and any black. A layer of Nuln Oil will go a long way. We are back trying to rescue the pouch and I thought that a single layer of Agrex Earthshade would solve my problems. It did. Throw some Agrex Earthshade on the gold as we think about what to do. And we edge highlight the control panel with Bar-Wrath Blue just to make sure that visually from a distance the control panel has a bit of pop. We figured out that no amount of Agrex Earthshade is going to save this pouch, so we've gone back in with Catachan Flesh and given the majority of it, we've kept the Wraithbone on the edges, but we've given the majority of it another layer of Catachan Flesh and we've put some Agrex Earthshade over that. There'll be less details, but the depth will look really good. Let's go on to the base now, and we're adding just some bits just to give this model some variety. Now in this army, assault intercessors with jump packs have been converted from typical assault intercessor bodies, so they need some height. Now they're standing on a lot of debris, so we're going to put a few debris on the different other models just to tie that in. So we've got some Space Marine bits here, and we're just going to layer that now with some Armageddon dust. This is, you'll quickly find my favorite texture paint. I always like my models to be in the desert. Any texture paint will do. You'll find that you'll be able to mold those debris, any rocks, anything in. It'll look incredibly realistic, like that debris has been in the ground for a long time. And we finish the base off with just a classic black rim. Let's go on to painting the debris. We're going to paint some of the missiles lead belcher and add a touch of blue for colour. Give the model, of course, a liberal dose of Nuln Oil, and then we're going to come back up lightly with Mechanicus Standard Grey and lighten it up a little bit just to give some texture. When I think of making Armageddon dust work, I think of using the contrast Nazdrag Yellow. This is a surprisingly good touch, just so it doesn't overwhelm the color below like you might find if you used Agrex Earthshade. I, of course, should have used a larger brush. You can see me struggling. While we're waiting for that to dry, we're going to put some transfers. Now, you can see that I'm using Micro Sol and Micro Set. I've explained this in a previous video, but essentially you put the blue one, Micro Set, on first, you add the decal, and then you smooth it over with Micro Sol, the red one. This will bend the decal, and you'll be very impressed with the result. We're going to start with your classic Blood Angels iconography. It's a black one, but it'll also go really well with the Blood Angels Combat Patrol and Blood Angels Army Box shoulder pads, because you typically paint those black. So we're going to add black iconography here. And don't forget, decals work fine just using water. You don't need microsol and microset, it just smooths it out. For the other shoulder, these are close support models, and there is a white close support decal. Let's finish the model off with a dry brush of a lighter color. You can either choose Screaming Skull or you can choose Wraithbone. In this one, I've tried Screaming Skull. And then we're going to add, of course, Gamer's Graft Tufts. They are the trick to make your base models look incredibly cohesive. I've added a little bit of Agrex Earthshade just for some color variants. And because, of course, I got a little excited with the Screaming Skull.
Welcome back. I hope you got exactly what you wanted out of that tutorial. I think there's only one thing for it. Let's dive into that grand reveal. Halfway through this paint, I really got discouraged. I wondered if it was going to turn out to be something as good as what I wanted to show you guys. It really did. I just kept my chin up, I just kept painting, got to the end of the model, and I'm really proud of what I've presented. I think that's a really good lesson out of this video. Thank you all, hobbyists. I'll see you in the next one.